Electrocast. And it's amazing how quickly you can flip a switch and go from hearing nothing to realizing your soul's been speaking to you so much, and you just haven't been listening. If you allow yourself to breathe, to connect, to close your eyes and really listen, it's amazing where you can go, what you can learn. It's like pulling the blinds open on everything that's already inside.
Welcome, beautiful souls, to Season 3 of the Cosmic Love Antenna with your host, Harrison Ma. I invite you on a mystical voyage from the intellect to the soul, delving deep into the mysteries of love's spiritual essence and its divine unfolding. This podcast celebrates the peeling back of heart layers, revealing beautiful, profound lessons, interviews with loving spiritual seekers, and practices and tools to open up your heart to love's infinite wisdom. I'm so excited to have you and grateful that our hearts have connected. Enjoy the show. Good morning, evening, afternoon, magical beings. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another podcast with a beautiful guest, the Divine Elizabeth Knittel here on the Cosmic Love Antenna. We're going to have a divine chat about all things meditations, activations, receiving channeled guidance, and what this looks like for you as the soul. Before we get into that, though, I want to welcome all the people that are either joining live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or tuning in on the podcast. If you have any questions today in the Facebook community or over on YouTube, and any comments that you want to add to the chat, just add it in and we'll add in your voice and your beautiful sound to this dance today. And remember that if this hits your heart in certain ways and it brings some guidance, please share this out far and wide with a friend, a family member, or a lover that you feel like it can support and nurture on this journey back home to your cosmic heart. Before I introduce the beautiful Elizabeth, I want to quickly just go over what we're going to get into today. So as I described at the start, we're going to talk about what it means to receive a channeled meditation / activation. What are the biggest blocks, challenges, shadows that one faces in these kinds of dynamics? How do the chakras play a role? How does your breath play a role? And everything in between. To do this, I do have the Divine Elizabeth here with me. Elizabeth is an intuitive healer. She's a spiritual coach and mentor. She works with Reiki. She works with whole body wellness. And as you'll soon see, she is a powerful, loving heart. Elizabeth, welcome to the Cosmic Love Antenna.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too, my friend. We were just having a chat before we started recording. You know, at the time of this recording, there's a lot happening in the energies in the world. But as soon as we started tuning into each other, I felt so calm and supported. So your beautiful energy is already coming through.
Thank you. I know it's when you're around people that are calm, it's nice to take that on instead of taking on the chaos that we do so frequently.
Yeah. And we'll talk about this today in regards to, meditations and activations specifically. But I wanted to start, Elizabeth, a bit differently to how I usually start these shows. I wanted to share a poem with you, and it's connected to the topic, what we're talking about today. And I think this will sort of set up some of the questions we'll go into. So I'll share this poem. It's a short one, and I'd love to hear what it brings up, and then we'll dive from there. So this poem is called, and for everyone that's tuning in, I'd encourage you to open your hearts because there's a bit more than just the words in this poem, as you'll see. This poem is called The River of Emotion. On the bridge of emotions and feelings I look, detaching from chaos that all this energy took. A stream of dense frequency flowing so free, I watch them all glide as the river to the sea. Embracing stillness in my stance, I find my repose, observing the current as it ebbs and it flows. The ripples of joy and the waves of deep despair, each emotion dancing openly, creating an affair. I stand on the wood as a silent observer, savoring the moments, each feeling of fervor. The laughter that glistens, sparkling and bright. The tears that cascade, a symphony strung tight. From anger's fiery blaze to love's gentle breeze, I witness the whole spectrum. My heart opens to ease. For I am not the stream, nor the emotions it holds, but an audience with awe, watching as life's story unfolds. Through turbulent rapids and tranquil lagoons, I navigate the depths beneath the nightly moons. The current of life forever in motion, yet I remain rooted, witnessing all the commotion. For in the divine detachment, a profound truth I know, that emotions are fleeting, they come and they go. I am the watcher and the witness in my stride, gently allowing the flow of the stream where all my emotions abide, no longer swept away by the tides of despair, no longer clinging to moments that I deemed so unfair. I surrendered to the stream, letting go of my control, finding the solace in this emotional journey awakened for my soul. For as I look on with patient love and curiosity, I discover the emotional beauty of my feeling sensitive luminosity. So, Elizabeth, I want to pass to you here and one, ask your reflections on that poem, but two, I want to hear you express from your heart. One of the reasons I hold meditations for people is to help them become that beautiful watcher of their emotions and the holder of space for themselves. So I'm wondering if you could share what comes up for you around all of this.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And I love listening to you read it. I mean, it sounded different coming from you than it would have sounded in my head if I had been reading it. So thank you for sharing that. And I just keyed in on exactly what you did, I think. And really, that's one thing that I'm always teaching people as well, is to really be that gentle observer of their emotions and really learning to ride the wave, to experience all the different feelings. And that was what I really saw in when you were reading that, was like the DNA helix of the swirling emotions coming through and feeling the joy and the happiness and the excitement and the tears and and all of it was really beautiful. But it's not necessarily how you're feeling, but how you feel about how you're feeling. That's important.
Exactly. Thank you for that reflection. And thank you for receiving the poem. That was a bit of a last minute addition to this show today. I just felt called to share it. And, it highlights why I wanted to have this chat with you, as you were describing, as we both do in our work. And I want to hear more about it in a second from you. But as we both do in our work with offering guided meditations and activations, one of the biggest reasons to help people do that, as you just highlighted, is to help them remember that, while emotions are troublesome when we suppress them, they also become troublesome when we become them, right? When we become the anger, when we become the guilt, when we become the shame, the sadness. But we can remember that we can hold that emotion. We can hold it to, like the river, let it flow through us so we can learn the lesson. Do you agree with that, Elizabeth?
Absolutely, I do. And that's one thing. I was working with my inner circle, the group that I have today. And one of the girls was talking about an uncomfortable emotion that she was feeling. And we sort of worked our way through it to feel the whole feeling, to figure out what was at the root of it, to get to the root cause so that to really process it. So it wasn't just going to be suppressed and then spring back up again at, an opportune time, and so that, and sometimes when you're experiencing joy, you just want to feel joyful. But when you do reflect back on your day, whether it's that night or the day before, I think it's so valuable to get to the root of that. Like, what is the joy coming from? Because that's something that you do want to recreate.
Yeah. And if we don't create the introspection, i.e. the meditation that we are giving ourselves or being guided through by someone else, if we don't have that introspection, we're not going to get to that answer, right? We're going to just continue with our day, right? And I fall into this trap, right? We get stuck in the masculine and we just do all the things, right? And that's powerful and it creates beautiful creations in our life. But when it comes to the emotional being that we are, the feeling being, it often works with the feminine. And the feminine likes to be still. The feminine likes to be in that sort of feeling state where you're just receiving from it rather than getting stuck in the action. Do you resonate with that, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. And it really is like having just delighting in like the swirling emotions happening around you and through you and to you, being in that flow state, really.
Yeah. Speaking of flow state, Elizabeth, for people that are new to not just meditations, but receiving a meditation or an activation from someone, I want to maybe describe for these beautiful newbies what this looks like. And so I'm wondering if you could start in your either one-on-one sessions you do with people or your group container like you just spoke about earlier. What does it look like for someone to step into that and receive a meditation or an activation from you?
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. So I do them all the time in the healings, and so it really, I would say, to start, it's important, I always think, for you to ground into your physical body, to start to be still and start with your breathing. And it really helps to calm your nervous system and slow your heart rate down and really connecting with your physical body first. And that really grounding into your being and where you are and being here and being present in the moment. And it slows the overthinking and it slows the need to perform, to step into that masculine. It really helps pull people out of that and just gets them sort of
into the present,
reflecting inward. Yeah.
And then from there, Elizabeth, what does it look like for you to take them deeper? So, for example, when I facilitate meditations and activations with souls that I support, we start with the breath. We start with that grounded stability, but then I open my channel and then sort of guidance comes through and I take them on a visualization / guided experience into themselves with the highest intention of the time that is needed. So for you, when you sort of start channeling frequency in to support either one person or a group, is it a similar sort of situation or does it look different for you?
No, it does. So usually what I really like to do is open my Akashic records beforehand. And so that I am that open channel going into it, and then creating like a circle of light and connecting us just with the highest levels of divine healing, then it sort of seals that in. And so it really does allow me to be that open channel and to have that love and communication flow through me internally.
I'm having so many questions bubble up. So I just want to welcome all the people dropping in live. Jade, I see you there, my friend. Welcome all the beautiful souls. If you have questions on Facebook or LinkedIn, YouTube, just pop them in the comments and we'll add in your beautiful voice as we keep flowing. So, Elizabeth, you said open your channel and then stuff starts flowing through and you guide people. How would you define what a channel is? And let me add an extra question to that. Are we all channels?
I think that we all have the ability to be. It's really opening up that connection to God, to the universe, to that flows through you. And absolutely, I think anybody could be if you open yourself up to it.
And what do you think that opening up looks like? So how do we step into more of that channel?
I mean, it's with intention, with asking, with that, it took a long time for me to really develop my personal connection with my higher power and the way and what that looked like. It started in a search, like that search inside. And I just remember, pulling at my heart and tugging and just going like, I know that you're there and I'm okay. I don't know how I'm okay. I don't know why I'm okay, but I'm okay. And I need help. I need that connection. And so developing that connection is really what allowed me to open myself up to even more, to being a verbal channel, because I think before I was a verbal channel, I was a channel of light and love. So probably not that answer you were asking.
No. It was beautiful. And I have a piece I want to add to it, but I just want to, for people tuning in, if this channeling topic is new to you, I've done many episodes on this and I'll put some episodes in the show notes for people to go deeper. But I want to share something here, Elizabeth, with you and get reflections on this. When we are either a person that is receiving a meditation, an activation from someone, or we are starting to create space to give to someone, to be a channel is to bring in that higher source, that higher power as you described. However, what tends to block that channel, and this is probably why it took you time, my friend, this is why it took me time, it is our shadows. Right? It is our unprocessed pain. It is our inner child wounds. It is our stories of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, etc. that blocks the current, right? So I guess what would you say, Elizabeth, to anyone that either wants to receive a guided meditation activation from a channel or learn to be the channel themselves? How do we start to move through that all those shadows?
Absolutely. Number one thing would be accept yourself just as you are, as perfectly being exactly who you are, where you are, just as you're supposed to be. Because acceptance brings about so much peace. And I think that tapping into the feeling of peace is going to raise your frequency up to where you are able to feel that you have that you're valuable enough to be worthy of the connection.
And I think it's important to see, I love how you've brought acceptance in, my friend. I think it's important to see that acceptance doesn't mean tolerate, right? I think a lot of us have resistance around acceptance because we feel like, oh, that means that I'm, saying that the act that person made on me, that they aren't held responsible for that. And that's not the case at all, right? Acceptance in many ways is you giving yourself permission to let go, right? Acceptance is you giving yourself permission to surrender and detach from an outside lens, right?
Exactly. And that goes back to what we were talking about before about if you accept, like, this is how it is, it just is, and make it neutral rather than place judgment on it. And then it allows you to sort of back up and be a gentle observer. And gentle, I think, is key, because we tend to judge, I think, is human nature. And actually, I was having a really beautiful conversation with my father this morning, and we were talking about the way that people are so self-deprecating. So it's really stepping out of that self-judgment into where you are being a kind, loving, gentle observer of yourself.
Yeah. It goes back to the poem we shared at the start, right? I often found within a meditative experience that acceptance is the gateway to more of that loving frequency to come through you, right? And whether you are holding space for someone or you are receiving from someone, it allows that to go deeper into yourself, right? Elizabeth, it's a question coming through in the chat that connects to what we've been talking about here today, and I want to pose it to you. The question is, I'm really curious as to what Akashic records are. I keep hearing this word, but have no idea what it is. So this connects back to what we were referring to tomorrow about earlier around setting up the container with the meditation, and you referred to connecting into the Akashic records. So can you describe from your perspective what the Akashic records are?
Absolutely. So the Akashic records are kind of like the records of your soul, and everybody has them. And it's literally everything, every person that you meet, every encounter that you have is all recorded and stored in your soul, sort of like a library of sorts. That is held in your energetic space. And so everybody's has theirs that is unique to them, and all of the blueprints of everything that your soul has experienced and will experience.
Beautifully said. And what I would add to it, from the Vedic perspective, which is where I take a lot of my teachings, Akasha is one of the elements. Right? Akasha is the space element. And as the beautiful Elizabeth just defined, in the space element of reality, there is the sequential evolution of consciousness. So every expansion that consciousness, which is us, right? We're all part of the one source. Every expansion that consciousness has made throughout sequential time is stored in the Akasha. So practically, what this looks like in a meditation, if Elizabeth is facilitating or I'm facilitating, and you are wanting to know a specific question related to your expansion, your evolution, you can tap into it. And I think it's important to understand, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Elizabeth, that there is nothing that you need to be worthy of. There's no box that you need to tick. There is no accreditation that you need to get to access the Akasha, because I think it's another thing in the spiritual community that, yes, you can be trained, yes, you can do all these practices, but it's not something that you can't access. And I think we need to be mindful of catching the unworthiness around it. Do you agree with that, Elizabeth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you can tune in, and again, it's intention and your willingness, and really to prepare your heart, but to step into the energetics of being in your records is available again for everybody. It's really you being open to it. And then, and I will say that it's something that fascinated me for a long time. And I did study it, because I was like, how do I get there? How do I get there? I need to be shown. And so I did take a course for it, but I do think it's available absolutely for anybody that's searching.
Yeah. I don't mean to discredit the courses. I think the courses are beautiful, but I guess my intention is, it's like all of these spiritual tools, they're there. We don't obtain them. Like even a course that we would do, we're remembering the ability that was inside of us the whole time, right?
Absolutely. And that's the coolest thing, because I've been doing a lot of Akashic Records readings lately. Sorry. And it's exactly what you just said. It's like pulling the blinds open on everything that's already inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is sort of where I want to throw to next here, Elizabeth, within this bigger topic today of receiving meditations and activations. Let's use the Akasha as an example. I've guided many souls into themselves in this way that we've been discussing, and they've had certain questions, right? And a lot of the times they get really detailed and beautiful channeled answers, or guides show up, or their inner child speaks, or their soul gives them these beautiful experiences. But on other sides, they get nothing. They get silence. They get darkness. They get, a nothingness or a void. And I've found that in these situations, I have my views on this. I want to hear yours first. But in these situations, a lot of resistance and fear and confusion comes up. So I'm wondering if you could speak to the value of getting silence, getting nothing in a sort of channeled meditation or activation.
Well, I feel like it could be a lot of things. I mean, like what you said earlier about expectations versus reality. And sometimes having expectations can set you up for a future resentment if you're not careful. And I really feel like it's check in your heart and see how prepared you are to receive, to listen. Because if you're expecting nothing and you get nothing, do you really win? But also there's such a value in silence, because you can do so much work on yourself and in your heart. And it's amazing how quickly you can flip a switch and go from hearing nothing to realizing your soul's been speaking to you so much, and you just haven't been listening.
Oh, that's a big point in itself, Elizabeth. I want to go back. I want to speak to the silence, but I want to go back to expectations, because you made such a good point here. I've found, especially within this meditation / activation topic today, expectations are one of the biggest cruxes to evolution and getting answers and getting guidance, because in many ways, an expectation creates the reality. Right? If you expect, as you said, right, if you expect to go into this meditation and to get nothing, and then you get nothing, you created that, right? You are the most powerful being in your reality, and you are constantly creating. And an expectation is you creating what you want. So it's important to understand that. And instead of creating an expectation, you go in with an intention, right? An intention that's open-ended. Right, I will receive something that's for my highest good, right? I will receive something that I am open to not knowing, right? Because that's the other side of expectations. They often come from the mind. And the guidance you receive, as you just highlighted, comes from the soul, right? Comes from the higher self that is beyond the mind. right? I want to get your thoughts on this, Elizabeth. And this goes back to the silence as an answer. I've noticed that when someone gets silence as silence or darkness or quote unquote nothingness within a guided meditation and activation, it doesn't just come with the silence, darkness, nothingness. It usually comes from comes with a reaction to the darkness, to the silence, such as anger or judgment, or as you said, resentment. And I found that in itself is something to work on. Have you noticed this, or do you agree with this?
I definitely agree with it. And I mean, I can think of so many times when I would try or even times when I would throw myself into a meditation and then something would sort of jar me and then it would like fade or dissipate. And it takes time to really be able to go back into the meditative state when you're in that. And so, like when you say that about judging the darkness, like I can think of times when I've been like, is this even working? And then,
Yep.
But it is so me, or it is so the person, because if you allow yourself to breathe, to connect, to close your eyes and really listen, it's amazing where you can go, what you can learn.
Speaking of the breath, Elizabeth, let's shift here a little bit. And you spoke about this earlier as you were defining sort of grounding and setting the space as you start to receive these meditations. And I want to go a little bit deeper now into the role of the breath in, the larger meditation / activation. And I'm wondering if you can share your experience around why is it so important to continue to come back to the breath itself? Because we hear this all the time within any kind of meditation, right? That the breath in many ways is your anchor. But I'm wondering if you can share your experience and perspective. What is the significance here? Why is the breath so an integral part of this experience?
Well, it's amazing. Your breath can completely change the way that your nervous system is reacting. And so, there's like so many things that just came in my head. So there's, you can go from a state of fight, flight, or freeze, and immediately using your breath, calm yourself down. And a lot of times I feel like when you go into a meditation during the day, you're not going necessarily from that heightened state of awareness, but you're going from the masculine to opening yourself up to receive. So you're dropping literally from, if you want to talk about the chakras, so from your solar plexus down into your sacral. And so it's like bringing that awareness out of your head and into your heart, as you often say, Harrison. And it's really making the conscious choice to do that with your breath. You can really connect all of that and visualize and see and know that your heart rate is slowing down, and you can really activate different, sort of like turning knobs on with your breath.
Yeah, I love that image, turning knobs on. It also acts as I've spoken about on this show, the journey of the soul, right? And without going too deeply into that whole conversation, in many ways, the soul that you are is the microcosm of the macrocosm. And what I mean by that is you are a unique expression of God, of oneness, of source, and you are connected to that oneness. That oneness is inside of you. But as we've all experienced, we often don't feel connected to that oneness. We don't feel connected to that higher power, that higher source. So if it's inside of us, but we don't have connection to it from time to time, what is the mechanism that opens us up to it? What is the mechanism that reconnects us to that godliness? And in my experience, it is the breath, right? Each time, I call it the breath of love or the breath of God. Each time we mindfully breathe in and slowly breathe out, as you described, we are reawakening our divine presence, right? We are inviting our highest power within to move through us. Do you resonate with that, Elizabeth?
I absolutely do. And when you said it, it just made me think of literally taking that deep breath and connecting from my feet, feeling it, feeling the grounding, my connection to the earth, and like going all the way up through my body, and that connection just increasing your awareness as you're breathing through that. So I love it.
Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast, just take that practice alone today, right? And start tuning into the breath as the switch on and off into deeper states of consciousness, and that will shift a lot of things. Another topic here, my friend, within this meditative journey, and you spoke about it a second ago, and I want to go deeper into it, is the role of the chakras in guiding people into themselves and sharing channeled activations. So I guess let me start is, how do you use them within a journey? If someone comes to, hold space with you and you're channeling some frequency, where do the chakras play a role?
So I like to start, we usually go through grounding and connecting from above and below. And then after some removing of excess energies and things, I like to work through the chakra systems with who I'm working with. And so really checking everything, starting with your root, because you don't want to be going up anywhere not being grounded. You always want to come back into
why is that, Elizabeth? Can you speak to that? Because I understand what you mean, but for people that don't know, why is it important to ground before we skyrocket into space?
Because if you go up and you're traveling into the astral plane, which would be like the home of emotions, then with your emotional body, then you just might not want to come back down. It's the truth.
It's this is such a common, consistent phenomena I've noticed personally, working with people and in the spiritual community at large. We go off into space, and it's beautiful up there. And I don't judge anyone for being in that realm, but this is where the root comes in. We must remember to come back, not just because it helps us get out of that sort of spacey feeling that can be a bit much sometimes, but it also helps us ground into the reason that we're here, right? We didn't come to Earth to be in space. We came to Earth to embody things through us, right? Do you agree with that, my friend?
Absolutely. And it really does remind me of like what we were talking about earlier in my group. And it's just, figuring out like what it is that you want to make of your 3D life, because that's what we have and that's what we're here to do. And like, we do love to be in the 5D and be up in the astral plane. That's really fun. But we came here to experience all the emotions, to do all the things, to have the desires, and to experience the journey of reaching for them and growing. And
through growing and experiencing through the 3D form, right? Through the physicality, through the I'm thinking of a word, the skin and the body at large, right? All of these are the themes of the root center, right? So it's just continuing this lesson here, right, that we're trying to convey, going off into the heights, getting all the downloads, but then bringing it back through the physical form to be expressed, right? We spoke earlier about how do we expand our channel. One of the ways we expand the channel is bringing that higher frequency and allowing it through the physical form, right? Allowing it to, and this is where I want to go next here, allowing it to help us detach and release anything we're holding on to. So I want to ask you, Elizabeth, you mentioned this briefly, but let's go deeper into it. Another way that I incorporate the chakras into a meditative journey is noticing which energy center is holding on to certain cords that we need to cut, or holding on to certain attachments, or holding on to certain projections from the outside world. Have you noticed this in your work?
Absolutely. And in every chakra, every organ, the cords that appear depend on the people and the time, and they all, to me, have different looks, different feel, different textures. I mean, some are easy to pull. They're also, I find, can be lodged in with different, like a fish hook with a barb, or like an arrow or a spiral. I mean, there's so many different things, and some are harder to get rid of than others. And so it's one thing to help somebody remove them, but it's another thing if you go back to that person or that behavior, or, if you keep feeding and nurturing that, that's something to be aware of. Like, you have so much power.
Yeah. And a quick little tip here for anyone that's interested in, starting to remove these cords and hooks and barbs. One of the best tools that we can learn to tap into, again, is the breath, right? A very intentional breathing practice and cleansing breath into each of the energy centers, I've found has been a really good way to come back into not just releasing the hooks and the cords, but also coming back into the power of each center, right? Because, and I'll get your thoughts on this, most cords, in my opinion, have a foundation of powerlessness, right? We feel like we're being controlled by an outside person, place, or thing, where if we add intentional breath into a specific center, let's say the heart, it helps us remember that that was an illusion, right? There was nothing that ever had power over me. It was just I forgot how powerful I was. Do you agree with that, Elizabeth?
I do, absolutely. And that is one thing, particularly with the solar plexus, which is our power center. I used to, in my practice, say I call back my power, but really realized that was insinuating that you could give it away, or somebody could take it. And that's really not true. And so today, when I'm practicing, I always will say, like, I stand in my power, because sometimes you choose to step outside of the light of your power, but it's always there.
Yeah. Yeah. So important to remember, which leads me to another question here that's coming through around receiving meditations and activations in a container, either one-on-one or in a group. There is a common illusion that I notice that comes in that I very quickly try and illuminate and help people see. But it's the illusion of, I come to see Elizabeth and I'm in her space and I'm feeling all these things. I'm feeling all this frequency moving through me, this love, this power. And I think that Elizabeth is giving me something. I think that the reason I feel the way that I do is because Elizabeth is powerful and magical and full of all this potential, and she very much is. But the reason I feel this way is because she is giving that to me in this moment. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on this, Elizabeth?
I think that, especially as empaths, most people that I work with are empaths. It's easy to take on other people's energy, and so you can feel that. But truly, any feelings that you have, any experience that you have, is because it's inside of you, and you are really capable of going there, of feeling that, of doing that thing that is truly inside of you. And I'm not the one, or you're not the one, that creates the lights, the visions, the things that might come for people during these experiences. That's 100% personal. And that's one thing, like, I always like to check in after my healings that I do and just ask what everybody, like, who saw something, who's, and let me know, because it's different for every person, even when you are leading something that's very guiding. And
yeah, I'm so happy that you were able to articulate that, Elizabeth, because it's so important to understand. I posted a post on Instagram about this the other day, and it's from a quote from Colin Tipping. He wrote a magical book called Radical Forgiveness. If you haven't read it, I'd recommend you check it out, Elizabeth. But the quote is, we also project onto others the things we like about ourselves that we yet to have a hard time accepting. Right. So what that means is, much like we project our unhealed wounds onto people and think it's them giving us pain, we also project our light that we have yet to acknowledge. Right. So if I walk into a meditation with Elizabeth and I suddenly feel powerful and ignited, that power is us. Right. That love is us. That illumination is us. And the quicker that we acknowledge that, the quicker it becomes more permanent in our reality, rather than me having to go see Harrison or Elizabeth all the time to feel it. Do you agree with that, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. And going back to the Akashic Records, I do believe that people are put into our paths and in our life that help us lead, open those doors so that we can get back to ourselves, because it's a remembering. And so there have been several people in my world that have really led me to where I am in my practice today, and in my ability to meditate and to feel the activations that come through. I can remember, and I don't know why, this keeps popping in my head. I just have to share it. So I remember I one time went to a meeting, and I thought it was just like a self-help group, and I went in and it was a meditation meeting, and it was completely silent. And I was not in a state of meditation at that period of my life. And I remember sitting there, and the whole time just thinking, like, I don't want to be here, and I don't know what to think about, and I just want to leave, but then they're going to judge me if I leave. They're going to hear me get up, and it was like this whole thing. And I just panicked for about 45 minutes, I think. And then everybody who was sharing very nicely, like, where they were at and what they were doing. And I just remember being like, I just didn't know this was meditation.
Yeah. I love it. I'm so happy that you shared this story, Elizabeth, because it highlights not just the fact that we are in soul contracts with the people that we are sort of pulled towards in these sort of containers, as you highlighted, but also that everything is always happening for us. Everything is always working out for us, right? I'll quote someone else here. Shakespeare says, there is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so, right? Nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And what that means is, let's use your example. There was so much in that, again, nothingness, in that silence, in that void. But what were you doing? You were being a human, like we all do, and you were projecting stories of illusion and making it bad, right? So it's just, this is a practice in itself that I do. It's what is the actual experience? Like, what is this silence giving me? What is it giving me that's beyond the stories that I'm projecting onto it? Is there something there? And I've experienced, Elizabeth, I'll get your thoughts on this, that there is always something there once we get out of our own way.
Absolutely. And probably if I went back to that girl that I was and said, one day you're going to be leading meditations and healings, I would have been like, no way.
That it planted the seed. It planted the seed.
It did. It made me aware of a practice. It brought it into my awareness that I couldn't sit still for 45 minutes. And learning to sit with myself was part of that process of that chapter that I was going through at that time. And I was very aware that that was a goal. And I became very aware that I couldn't do it at that time. And so it was like a whole level that I needed to step up to.
Yeah. What a gift, right? What a gift that was. I think we can all learn to do that in our journeys. Elizabeth, I really enjoyed this conversation. You're such a beautiful soul to dance with. I have 2 more questions to finish before I let you go with your evening and afternoon. In the work that I do in these meditations, activations that I offer people, I bring in certain guides. I bring in certain ascended masters that I work with to support not just me, but the person I'm with. And I know that you do this also. So I'm wondering if you can speak to the importance or, just why you choose to work with certain ascended masters in these kinds of meditations and activations.
So I really believe that the masters were people. They went through physical 3D lives and lived and experienced things on they lived through hard lives, but learned lessons that could be taught and could be shared, and that they are truly such guiding lights for us. And so really, in a nutshell, that's why I love working with Ascended Masters.
Yeah, and they bring not just those beautiful lessons that they learned in the lives that they lived, but they also bring a frequency of love that I've noticed into the channel or into the meditation activation that you're doing. I've noticed that. So I'll give an example. One of the ascended masters that I work with is Mother Mary, and Mother Mary has one of her superpowers or lessons that she helps support souls with is working with the inner child and working with joy and compassion and play and healing the inner child. And as soon as you call to her, I've noticed in an activation, you just feel this frequency of support and calmness and gentleness and love. And that can often be the thing that helps us through that current shadow, right? Have you noticed this in your experience?
Yes, definitely. And so I also work with Mother Mary and then also Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
And so and I do love working with the feminine energies. As well as there are some men too, but there is a softness and a gentleness, and that frequency of love and light is it just beams, and it does
expansive.
Shine that gentle light on the shadows, because the shadows are nothing but somewhere that a light hasn't been shining.
Beautiful. Last thing I'll say on the masters too, just for people that are new to this. Again, you don't need to do anything to ask for them, right? Because I know there's a lot of, I grew up, for example, there's a lot of religious dogma that you're not worthy of asking for these kinds of energies, or you need to do something to be enough to ask for the love. But again, and I'll put this in the show notes, an episode where I've done working with these kinds of energies, guides, you're worthy already. The only thing that's stopping you from experiencing these kinds of interactions is you asking and accepting it. Do you agree with that, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. You are so worthy. And it really merely is setting the intention to connect that you will be connected.
Love it. Elizabeth, you are a powerful heart that I have such a pleasure of knowing in my world. And I think people have been able to tune into that divine frequency that you are today. If they have been magnetized to you in the way that I am and your beautiful work in the world, and they want to find out more, what do you have going on in your world? How can people get in touch? You mentioned your group containers. Where would you like to send people if they want to go deeper?
Really the best place and where I live the most is on Instagram. And I think you have my handle. My handle is at elizabeth.love.healer. And I'm very, very active in my DMs. And so I'm always doing sessions, whether it's one-on-one. I have a group healings that I do every Thursday. And then, and I've got a new group that's starting up soon. So I welcome anyone who is wanting to connect. Absolutely.
And as always, beautiful podcast listeners, I will put all of Elizabeth's details, her handle, her website in the show notes. You just click the link and you can go straight there.
Yes.
Elizabeth, my last question for you here today before we wrap up. And I'm really interested in your answer to this. I call this the cosmic love antenna because on my journey, I came to the understanding that my high power was not a man on a cloud outside of me judging me, but rather a deeper consciousness of love that I can awaken to and feel moving through me in many of the ways that we've spoken about here today. So I'm wondering, in your world, Elizabeth, how do you define that love word personally?
Love is everything. It's literally, oh my gosh, it's the most expansive feeling. It is so real. I mean, and that, I mean, goodness, love is truly everything. The name of my business is Pure Love. And so it's, even when I was doing skin, it was pure love and beauty. And so I just balance everything on love, because you can't feel love and fear at the same time. And if everything is love, then fear is really nothing.
Ooh, there's my little intro snippet for this podcast, my friend. If everything is love, then fear is nothing. Beautiful. I love you, my friend. Thank you for your presence today. Thank you for your frequency. It's been an absolute pleasure. For all the people that have tuned in either live or on the podcast, thank you for your attention, your time. If this hit your heart today, please share this far and wide. But until next time here on the show, we send you love, we send you light, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Cosmic Love Antenna with me, your host, Harrison. If you gained value or this episode hit your heart, please remember to share this out with a friend, a family member, or a lover. You can also leave your love over on Apple reviews and Spotify star feedback, and this helps me spread my frequency to more souls in need. Finally, if you want to connect with me deeper, want to reach out, interested in coaching, please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at Harrison Meagher, Meagher spelled Meagher. Sending you so much love.
Electricast.
Welcome to Tuning Into Sound Wellbeing, where we harmonise your mind, body and soul. I'm Amanda, your sound therapy expert.
And I'm Stephen, the curious explorer uncovering the mysteries of sound.
Together we explore vibrations, frequencies and the power of sound therapy and tuning forks.
Discover ancient wisdom, reduce stress and tune into a healthier life. Subscribe to Tuning Into Sound Wellbeing today.
Hey, what's happening out there, everybody? This is Lawrence Ross, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my podcast, The Lawrence Ross Show.
Egomaniac.
It's a 2-hour weekly exploration into my mind. I also do sketches, celebrity impersonations.
You're out of order!
And I also do song parodies. Not too shabby for a blind guy.
Not only are you visually impaired, but you are geographically impaired.
New episodes are released every Friday. Check it out on your favorite podcasting platform or listen to it here on Society 13 on Electricast.
Electricast.